The stalled denuclearization talks between North Korea and the U.S. appear to be getting back on track. North Korea said Monday that the talks will likely resume within a few weeks. President Moon Jae-in has also vowed to offer full support for the peace process on the Korean peninsula. And with Moon scheduled to meet with his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly next week, there is hope that denuclearization talks could pick up further speed. Today we go in depth into what to expect in the coming weeks and see what possible variables lie ahead before North Korea and the U.S. finally sit together at the negotiation table. For that, Dr. Kim Hyun-wook, professor at the Korea National Diplomatic Academy, joins me in the studio today. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So, North Korea's Director General of the Foreign Ministry said today that discussions are expected to start within a few weeks, but it also said that talks are only possible after threats are fully removed and that it's up to the U.S. whether this is a window of opportunity or whether this leads to crisis. How are you looking at the current situation?
I think, there's not much that's determined yet. After the failure at Hanoi meeting, I think the U.S. position has been much more hardened now. With John Bolton in the position, of course, he's out now. But the U.S. position at the time was to request North Korea to denuclearize first, and also provide some big picture about the definition, concept of denuclearization and roadmap and so on and so forth. But I think maybe now President Trump feels like he needs something for his general election, might want some sort of diplomatic outcome, which would be able to raise his support rate for his general election. So I think he's trying to get some kinds of a good deal about North Korea issues. But I'm not sure what kind of positions North Korea and the U.S. would have and meet in a working level talk. I don't think there has not been a much detailed position set up yet.
So when and where do you think the talks will take place?
We don't know. The rumor says that the U.S. Steve Biegun did not like the place like Pyongyang or Panmunjom area, something like that. So I think the possible meeting place, I think, will be somewhere in the European continent, or maybe it would be good to have a first working level talk in New York right after the General Assembly next year. We'll see how it goes, but I don't think Korean Peninsula or Southeast Asia would be the place this time for a working level talk.
So another focus is on who will be on the negotiating team from the U.S. The team will likely include U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo as well as Stephen Biegun, the special representative for North Korea. What do you think about Pyongyang's side?
I think the Vice Minister Choi Sun-hee might be, controlling the entire working level talk, but I'm not sure who will be the one who would take the position of Kim Hyuk-chul, who has been the person to talk with Steve Biegun right before the Hanoi summit meeting. We'll see who will come from North Korea, but I think definitely he will be the one who is who knows very well about the nuclear issues of North Korea, rather than someone who knows only the United States. If he knows the United States, that's not the core of the negotiations. The core of the negotiation is in what level and in what process North Korea is willing to denuclearize itself, vis-a-vis things like things that it can get from the United States, for example, sanction lifting or security of the North Korean regime, so on and so forth.
So South Korean President Moon Jae-in on Monday said that he will actively support the North Korean-U.S. talks, and he will also be in the U.S. next week to attend the UN General Assembly. Now, there's growing hope that this could create momentum for the denuclearization talks to pick up speed. Can we say Moon's facilitator role has once again become a key factor?
I think the meeting with President Trump from President Moon Jae-in's side is very important, because I think at least President Moon Jae-in can give what South Korea is thinking about the dialogue. Now, President Trump is very active and very assertive to have a meeting with North Korean side, beginning from the working level talk. But I think the reason why President Moon Jae-in and Trump is meeting is is for the purpose of working level talk not to be stalled in the middle. I mean, in order for two countries, North Korea and the U.S., to continue talks in the working level and not come up with another stalemate, I think that's the reason why President Moon Jae-in wants to meet with President Trump. But does this move make South Korea a facilitator again, a mediator again? I'm not sure, because now North Korea does not want South Korea to jump in the talk. I mean, in 2017, South Korea was very important facilitator between North Korea and the United States. And North Korea trusted South Korea. But now I think maybe because of Hanoi meeting or post-Hanoi policy of South Korea vis-a-vis North Korea, all disappointed North Korean side. And North Korea wants to use China more than South Korea as a mediator. So I'm not sure how much South Korea can take a role of mediator again. But I think at least the meeting between President Trump and Moon Jae-in would be meaningful for the talk.
So like you said, they're scheduled to sit down for talks on the sidelines of the UN meeting. While there is potential that the North Korea-U.S. summit, while there is potential for another North Korea-U.S. summit, much interest is on what possibly Moon and Trump will be discussing at this meeting next week. What are some things that we should be looking out for?
In addition to the North Korea talk issues, I think important one would be, first one would be, South Korea-Japan relations. The U.S. policy towards Asia, important unilateralism is U.S., Japan, South Korea trilateralism, which is, located geographically and geopolitically right next to China. Very important countries, allies of the United States for its policy towards Asia. So I think if current, breakdown of GSOMIA, would mean to the United States that the U.S. policy toward China and the policy towards Asia and using those allies, important allies like South Korea and Japan, is not going very well. The policy Indo-Pacific strategy of the U.S., the core countries of Indo-Pacific strategy, I think are Japan and Korea rather than Australia and India. So I think the President Trump would ask President Moon to revert this breakdown of GSOMIA. President Moon, on the other hand, I think would want President Trump to be more actively mediate to revert the relationship between Japan and South Korea, which is now very conflictual. But the question is, would Prime Minister Abe would be accepting the role of mediator of the United States? I think Prime Minister Abe is using this kind of conflict between South Korea and Japan. His ultimate goal and objective is to revise the constitution, and if the Congress, members of Congress surpasses that requirement of proposal of constitutional revision, that it goes down to the referendum, in which only half of the voted populace is satisfied, then revised constitution revised revision is possible. So I think recently the poll says that I think 53 or 58% of Japanese people responded that they support a vote for the constitutional revision. So I think Prime Minister Abe would think that now his goal to revise constitution is very near in the future. Possible in the future. So I think he would try to use this kind of conflict between South Korea and Japan for his goal and objective to revise constitution, I think.
So shifting gears a little bit, since Trump fired his national security advisor, John Bolton, eyes are on what changes this might bring to Washington's policy towards North Korea. And a key reason for his dismissal was that Bolton wanted to apply the Libya model to North Korea. Now, in a way, Trump has shown that he's opposed to the Libya model. So what do you think this means for denuclearization talks with North Korea going forward?
I think the features of Libya model is that the U.S. wants to take all the nuclear assets and weapons and production facilities out of North Korea and bring them into somewhere in the United States, even scientists, and make those nuclear scientists to be working for some other jobs rather than working for their nuclear science. So this is something some kinds of process that the U.S. can, be aware of what is going on inside the North Korea, what kind of level of nuclear weapons they have, what processes of production of nuclear production North Korea has been undertaking, things like that. So I think this kind of process North Korea would not be willing to accept. Second feature of Libya model is that North Korea has to denuclearize first before the U.S. to lift sanctions for North Korea, which is not what North Korea wanted. North Korea wanted was that there should be simultaneous step-by-step process of denuclearization vis-a-vis sanction lifting provided by the United States. So I think these policies of the United States something that North Korea could not accept. So I think maybe that's why President Trump thinks that in order for two countries to come up with a deal, this kind of Libya model should be something that Trump should not accept anymore.
Now, on top of that, according to U.S. media, Trump and Bolton clashed over the lifting of sanctions on Iran before Bolton was sacked. Now, Trump said he might lift some sanctions on Iran as a way to kickstart nuclear negotiations with Tehran. If that's the case, what does this mean for North Korea?
I think that's a very important point because now still the U.S. government, Trump government, is sticking to the sanctions. I mean, if there is still some substantial amount of denuclearization by North Korea, there will be no sanction lifting. That's what Trump government position is about, even after Bolton left. But maybe another possibility is what happened in Hanoi. I mean, right before Hanoi meeting, Steve Biegun's position was that the U.S. can accept the step-by-step simultaneous approaches. For example, if North Korea denuclearizes a little bit, U.S. can lift sanctions a little bit. This kind of step-by-step approach is something the U.S. accepted for Hanoi meeting, even though Hanoi meeting was not successful. So I think maybe the U.S. can go back to what its position was at Hanoi meeting, but we'll see how it goes because this is something that has not been cleared yet in the United States.
So North Korea has recently called on the U.S. to bring a new calculation method to the table or else the dealings between the two could fall apart. What do you think it's referring to? And with Bolton gone, how likely is Washington to accept this kind of offer?
I think it's today that North Korean Department of North America within the Foreign Ministry had an announcement. And very interesting point in his announcement was that if the U.S. If U.S. lift the sanctions and if the U.S. takes measures to guarantee security of North Korean regime, then North Korea is ready to talk about and discuss about denuclearization with the United States. That's very interesting because so far the U.S. position was denuclearization first and then, later incentive. But what today's announcement of North Korea argues is that, sanction lifting and regime security guarantee first and then denuclearization later. So I'm not sure if this kind of position is something the U.S. can accept. But I think what North Korea is doing now is to kind of come up with a tug of war with the United States to tame the United States so that they can have a much better outcome in the working level talk. But we'll see how it goes.
So according to a local newspaper on Monday, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has invited Donald Trump to Pyongyang through a letter citing diplomatic sources. Now, if so, it would be the second letter within the span of a week. And Trump said in early August that he'd received a beautiful letter from Kim. And he signaled that they could have another meeting. How likely do you think there is the possibility of a third meeting between the two within this year?
I think the meeting's possible, summit meeting's possible. The important thing is whether summit meeting is something related to the denuclearization of North Korea or not. Look what happened at DMZ. DMZ meeting between Trump and Kim Jong-un was something that was not relevant to the denuclearization. They can meet frequently, often by themselves, without any progress of denuclearization. But I think what is important now with President Trump having general election next year is that there should be summit related to some kinds of outcome about the denuclearization of North Korea. I mean, they cannot just tweet again and meet without any meaningful outcome. I don't think that's something that is helpful for President Trump anymore.
Okay, so we'll see how these developments go within the next few weeks. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you very much.